In this video, a group of women dressed in white can be seen carrying various items for the ceremony as they walk towards the Bobu Bulobon's shrine. More than 10 men are also seen wearing white, accompanying the 12-year-old girl to the ground. A voice can be heard shouting, "This is tear robber, this is tear robber," a term suggesting the 12-year-old is a virgin. She continues as other voices join in as they say the old man really has a good sight. At the ceremonial ground, scores of people, all wearing white, are seen seated for the main event. The MC lists the items brought to the girl. The MC is then heard saying the 63-year-old man loves to play romance and will be engaged in romance today. And that, quote, he will use the girl as a wonderful instrument for enjoyment, unquote. She goes ahead to mention the number of drinks they have brought for the ceremony.
You are a wonderful instrument for enjoyment.
The MC is heard again saying every woman has to smell good at night. They brought perfumes that the 12-year-old can apply at night after wearing her see-through dress.
Here was snap, one here was red label, one here was green label, one here was blue label, one here was yellow label. Which I can see a face about the label here. Let me show me I can't be here. One fair blame Makusu, and I want 1 year, wa frotto. Ni telemaya mi opo ni wakaba. Jeno bekake. Ahawa leake away to a man's heart through his stomach. Kotono wuhia meshia. Tano honi ohale. Neye katope. Ebabo mweni kaka habo shishini. Wahia wanibi baba nigbaka ko wo see through eta. Nimi chomiaka obashio woe. Koko e petaniye. Alo numwe numo banake. Ngako mfaka njaheko.
And if you understand Ga, the very last words of the MC is what the Gandangbe group are now blaming for the euphoria. Because the very last words of the MC clearly indicates that she was going to be the subject of sexual encounters. Joining us this morning to help understand what is said to be betrothal. That's such a lavish, massive ceremony. People cannot reconcile that with anything than marriage. And is it the case that this was the time when she was 12 and now the Mankralu in an interview says she's 13, then we hear information again that she's 15 or that she turns 16 in July, and then we hear that she's 16. Does any of that matter? You've also heard the traditional leaders give a press conference and say that she is not being betrothed to the man, the priest, who is said to be 63 years old, but she's being given or betrothed to the spirit. Does that also matter? Joining us, very competent women to help us with this discussion. Professionals, women professionals. Dinah Sonabadapa is Deputy Attorney General and Deputy Minister for Justice. In the course of the week, you read a statement under her hand, very unequivocal, about the police needing to investigate the matter to the bottom and taking the right actions. And if the police need the help of their lawyer, the Attorney General, they should not hesitate to contact them. Also here in the studio, Dr. Angela Dwamena Abuaji is Executive Director, the ARC Foundation. She's also a lawyer, and she has done work in this area for years. She's in the business of rescuing girls, women abused, traumatized, and giving them shelter and helping them to live life all over again well. Mercy Labi is Deputy Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. She's been very unequivocal in the course of this week that she is not 18. She cannot be betrothed. She cannot be married. Pure and simple. Shraj has shared statistics with us on this phenomenon that happens many places in the country. Very little girls whose future being stolen from them. We will start with Sheila Minka-Premo, lawyer and senior legal practitioner and development consultant, ALC Law Consult. Of course, she is just too known, and I mean too known. She has done a lot of research on family law and gender and development issues. She's got publications on these issues, a lot of them, and she also joins us. Thank you very much. Let's begin with Sheila Minka-Premo. Good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. Please unmute your mic.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
Great to have you. Only hoping that your line will be clean so that we can enjoy.
US as well.
Great. So she was just saying hi to the two of you as well.
Right. Good morning.
Hi, Sheila.
All right. So first, when you heard about this, what's running through your mind? And up to today, this morning, what have you been thinking?
Okay, thank you very much. When I heard about this, I think I heard about it on Sunday or Monday, following the event. I was quite surprised that this was occurring. I know it is something.
Okay, it's the headline obviously. Sheila's line is obviously not the best. I think we can raise her direct on phone so that we can speak to her and benefit from her extensive knowledge on this subject. I pose the same question to you, Angela.
Well, yes, I was a bit surprised because I thought that by now people should know the legal age of marriage in this country. I mean, it is even such that even at 18, if you want to marry, you need the consent of your parents. The law is that protective. It's only at 21 that actually you can go ahead and marry without the consent of parents. So I was a bit surprised. I thought we should know. On the other hand, having worked in this area for a long time, sometimes it doesn't surprise me too much because in this country we still have many issues that have to do with children, children as boys and girls, and children as girls, okay, that have not been resolved despite the laws that we have in the land. So you have this mixed thing going on at the same time, and I'm sure it probably is even going on in other places if we are not careful enough to start looking out for some of these things. So yes, that's what I feel.
So, and I know Diana will speak on her professional capacity as the Attorney General's department and how they think, which we already have, a glimpse into what they are thinking. But it's important to know how you also felt when you heard the news before you began to gather your facts and to eventually issue a statement.
Thank you very much, Samson. I believe my feelings are no different from what Sheila and Angela have expressed. Worry also, because as Angela indicated, you would think that in this year of 2024, proceeding on the allegation, and I keep saying that it hasn't yet been proven, but assuming it's proven, there's a sense of worry that in 2024, people would be either oblivious or ignorant of generally human rights and particularly children's rights. But I must put on record that the public outcry also gave me some sense of happiness, because the public outcry is a demonstration for me of the substantial understanding of the general public of fundamental human rights, particularly children's rights. The converse is also true, because then it indicates that in 2024, we're still having some of these worrying cultural practices existent. So I was happy that at least Ghanaians are alert to human rights generally. They can at least sense a possible infraction of the laws on human rights, particularly on children's rights. Of course, social media has also contributed to this. So I'm glad that some progress, at least if we look at it historically, has been made in the sensitization. But it also tells us there is more room for improvement. Thank you.
And despite that, when you issued your statement, you also sought to educate by quoting the law.
That's correct.
To help people to appreciate it.
That's correct.
Why was it that important to refer people to what the law says?
Right. It became important because in the midst of the public outcry, there were some seeming justifications for cultural practices. And I like to point out, so there was an intersection between cultural rights and children's rights. And so it was imperative on our part to point out that assuming the facts are proven, there is clearly a breach of children's rights, and without prejudice to our cultural rights. And so it was important, of course, by our constitution, it is imperative that where there is an offense, it must be clearly spelled out, and the punishment for same is also equally spelled out. And that is why our letter indicated, first of all, the provision, the law, and what is possibly the infraction of that particular law, and also accompanied it with the sanctions for breach of that law.
Do we have Mary joining us? Okay. Have we been able to restore Sheila's line? Hello, Sheila. Okay. So we are going to get her direct on phone rather than Zoom so that we speak to her directly that way. Now, the morning after the news broke and everybody began to express concern, it didn't take long, and then we saw a statement under the hand of former Attorney General Aiko to former Ambassador to Canada, correct? And now also the lawyer for the Gadangbe, group issue a statement and indicate that this was betrothal and people should not be as frenzied as they were, and that there was actually no marriage, and that they agreed with the position of the Wulomo. Right after that, then we had the tons of messages coming in from FIDA, the AG issued a statement, we had from NCC, we had from Occupy Ghana, we had from Child Rights, so many of them.
Yes. Yes, I mean, it's important that these messages come out, these press releases, to clarify the situation. Because if you look at that section in the Children's Act, remember this act is set within a certain framework, and we even have policies adopted to give flesh to the act. For example, the family welfare law, the child and family welfare policy, not law. if you read it together, you understand that there are people who are expected to take care of children's protection and rights. Families, parents, traditional authorities, religious authorities, all of these people, everyone, in fact, the child is in the center of the discussion around its survival, protection, development, participation. The child is in the center. So even the child himself or herself, if they begin to think, are supposed to be able to voice out their own views about what they think is also good for them. And that is why we adopted the framework that we call the welfare principle of the best interest of the child. We didn't just say best interest, because there's a place where sometimes people look as though they're pushing rights to a nonsensical degree. In Ghana, we adopted the welfare principle, meaning that the child, by reason of their vulnerability, needs the protection of all of us, including even the child, if they're able to reason, and the best interest, which adopts the language of rights protection. It was a very careful marriage. And that is why when you come to the law itself and it talks about refusal for betrothal or marriage, you must read that whole portion together. You cannot separate them and say betrothal, marriage are two different things when it comes to the child who cannot consent to either betrothal or marriage. That is the import of that section. Betrothal is, in our language, we call it, in the Twi language, esiwa. Esiwa is a pledge of marriage. It is that it's so close to marriage that a child who cannot consent to marriage cannot be consenting to betrothal. We assume that they are not in that position because of their vulnerability to even consent to betrothal. So whether it is betrothal or a subject of a dowry transaction or marriage, there is a clear section. You can't do this. And if you do it, these are the sanctions. So I'm surprised that, a few legal, he's not the only one, have been trying to make distinctions between betrothal and marriage and whether you have to force somebody before you can consent to betrothal. It doesn't matter at all. Whether she's 16, whatever, she cannot be betrothed. And remember also that within this frame of the law are the whole gamut of protections that we as adults, especially parents, you have to protect your child from negligence, from discrimination, from violence, from abuse, from exploitation, from physical and moral hazards. That is, for me, the most interesting part of it. This is found in, I think, Section 6 of the Children's Act. Physical and moral hazards. I know the one who drafted this legislation, and I can bet you I am in her head right now. She knew exactly why she put all those words together. And it's time for us to understand the import of the law in terms of protecting children from a broader framework of all society. And that is why betrothal and marriage cannot be different for the children.
Let's get to Sheila. And thank you very much once again. We know that you have made a commitment to this platform to be able to speak to us despite your very tight schedule this morning. So thank you once again. Now, Angela just spoke, and it is as if the custom doesn't matter at all. The people are telling us about the custom.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that Angela and Honorable Diana have said most of all I would have said. Then as far as the particular issue you're looking at, okay, what about the custom? Under our law, customary law is part of the laws of the country. If you look at Article 11 of the Constitution, which gives you the hierarchy of laws we have the Constitution, we have enactments by Parliament, we have rules, regulations, then we have what we call the common law. And the common law is defined to include what we received from our colonial masters, as well as the customary law of the various communities. So customary law is recognized as part of the laws of the country. However, it is subject to the Constitution. If you look at Article 26 of the Constitution, it's very clear and says that every person is entitled to enjoy practice, profess, maintain, or promote any cultural, language, tradition, or religion subject to the provisions of this Constitution. And then subsection 2 says, all cultural practices that dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being are prohibited. So, whilst we recognize customary law as part of our law, it is very clear in our Constitution, which is our supreme law, that if it causes any harm or injury, then it is prohibited. Angela has indicated that we also have Acts of Parliament, which is the Children's Act in particular, which protects our children. It says that they should not be subject to any moral hazard, etc. We all know what goes on when it comes to marriage. Marriage has a lot of things that have to do with it, including sex, etc. The same Constitution, as well as our Children's Act, says that the Constitution, the Criminal Offences Act says you can't have sex, you can't get consent to sex until you're 16.
Yeah.
Okay? So the two purport to have married a girl who is 12 years old, who also even under the law can't even give proper consent. It is wrong. It could be a customary right that it is subject to the Constitution, and therefore it is not right. The customary practice which we have, which is these betrothals, which the Section 14 of the Children's Act prohibits, it is not allowed under our law. And Acts of Parliament are superior to the other laws that are mentioned, as I indicated in the hierarchy. So yes, he has the right to practice the customary law, but it should not be done in such a way that it causes harm or injury to somebody. And that child stands to be harmed if that child is allowed to marry.
You made reference to Article 26. Article 28 speaks about the children and their rights and how they ought to enjoy certain protections. And Angela, actually, what she refers to, Article 28(1)(d), says that children and young persons receive special protection against exposure to physical and moral hazards. Now, I've heard elsewhere that is being suggested, including from Ace Ankoma, that we are seeking to elevate something we call custom that may not exactly be part of our laws when we give the education that customs are part of our law. A custom is not necessarily customary law. And at a point when we have made a specific law outlawing something, you cannot elevate a custom over that particular law. What do you say to that?
I totally agree with the assertion Ace is making. Okay? Because based on what I said earlier, yes, while the Constitution recognizes the customary law of the various communities, etc., etc., the same Constitution indicates that the rights of children is very important and it needs to be protected. Besides, the most customary laws that we have are basically unwritten. Most of them are oral. There are few that are written. I had the privilege of working with the National House of Chiefs on a research project called Ascertainment of Customary Law on Land and Family. And we did it in a number of traditional areas. We uncovered some of these things which are ongoing. This Istiwa, which has different names in different parts of the country. We saw some in the northern part, some in the southern part as well. And one of the things which at the end of the research was indicated is that any practice which there's a specific law, again, which is there's an act of parliament that has been enacted which says that something else, some other principle is the one which is in place, then that's right. It goes back. Okay, what is there? If the statutory law that has been enacted in place, that means to regulate that area. So 8 is right. When it comes to do with marriage, 18 years is the time that has been set by which a person can legally, this is also in line with international right, especially that can decide on, including the prevention right of the child. 18. And then it is the amount that states that not married with religion. 8. Children are active, which is one of the laws. You cannot trust, make a child betrothal or illegality or marriage. Okay, you cannot force it. So 8 is absolutely right.
I think we are still having a bit of a difficulty with your line. So my final question to you will be, what should happen? What must happen from here?
Thank you very much. As the Deputy AG indicated, has been indicated in their letter, appropriate investigations to be undertaken. And following the investigation, the things that we have seen, we have seen or heard are established. Then the appropriate sanctions, the appropriate prosecution should take place and sanctions meted up. I think that this issue has come up. There's a national strategy in place to try to address child marriage from the year, I think, 2013 to 2026. It is still in place. And for me, this is a classic case which we should see through to set a big precedent in this country so that nobody will think of doing anything like this once it is established that it was actually a marriage or it was a betrothal. What we've seen, we don't want it repeated anymore. So I think that the law should work. It should be seen to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila Minka-Premo, speaking to us there. Now back to you and Diana Sunaba-Dapa, Deputy Attorney General and Deputy Minister for Justice. The Plan International, they are one of those who issue statements. And in their statement, they said, Plan Ghana, they said, it is imperative that the government of Ghana upholds its obligation to protect the rights of all individuals and take concrete actions to eliminate harmful practices such as child early and forced marriages. Would you say that so far you are taking steps that gives Ghanaians this assurance?
Right, I believe so. I think yesterday the Ministry of Information came out with some release. But before I go that, Sam, you made a very good distinction between cultural practices and customary law.
Okay.
Now, if you look at Article 26, it gives the right to practice your culture. But then it is one of the articles that has a caveat, which is that the customary practices which are dehumanizing or injurious to our physical. So just to bring it out that absolute statement that culture is part of our laws is not necessarily right. There is a caveat, and people should not, close their eye to that particular caveat. Now, on the issue of the step the government is taking, and it's in sync with the welfare principle that is established under Section 12 of Act 560. Indeed, when the whole incident was reported and the euphoria, there was an interministerial committee that was set up, made up of the Ministry of Interior, the Chieftaincy Ministry, the Gender Ministry, and of course the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice was there to give the necessary advice. We believed, and this is what we acted on, that in the midst of all the euphoria, it was the best interest of the child that was important. Right. In as much as people were agitating for prosecution, I think the focus was too much on the offense that had been allegedly committed than on the interest and welfare of the child. And so in accordance with what we believe should be the priority, which is the child, the Ministry of Gender and of course the Ghana Police Service immediately took the child and the relative to a place of safety. As the press release from the Ministry of Information indicated, the child is currently doing well, going through the necessary social welfare recommended protocols. There are two caregivers. There's a medical doctor that are taking the child through the necessary protocols. There's a case worker on standby to ensure that all the protocols regarding the welfare of the child and the best interest of the child are clearly adhered to. Of course, concurrently, then police are also doing their investigation. And that's what the statement indicated, that the Ghana Police Service has taken statements from the Wolomo. They've also taken statements from the parents of the child. And so my admonition to all of us is, I think there was too much concentration on the crime itself. It is good. As I've indicated, I have been happy about the sense of alertness of Ghanaians and the general public on human rights and children's rights. But I think we should equally bring to the fore a discussion on the best interest of their children. And the Office of the AG is consistently in touch with the Gender Ministry to ensure that the interest of the children is done. So there are currently medical issues that she's going through, psychological treatment that she's going through, and of course all the determination and assessment of the age, etc., are going through. We are on top of this matter, I can assure you, and hopefully next week I think we should be making some progress beyond what you've already.
Now, it is a fact that she's not 12. What we are not too sure about is whether she's 16 or will turn 16 in July. Is that a central part of what your instructions are to the investigators?
Sam, my position is that whether 12, 15 or 16, the law is clear if you look at section 14. And I've heard discussions. And for me, again, I keep saying that this event is a good opportunity for us as Ghanaians to resensitize ourselves. It is neither here or there whether 12, whether 15 or 16. Of course, I'm mindful of section 122 of Act 560 on the determination of the age of a child. It is key only for purposes of ensuring that section 14 has not been breached. And clearly, the arguments that are being thrown out there, whether 12, 15 or 16, still does not meet the age criteria. So if there's any determination of ages as to 18, so that the 12, 15, 16, I think is neither here or there. Betrothal marriage, again, respectfully, I have to disagree with my learned, respected senior. It's also neither here or there. I think the Section 14 is clear, and even Section 1, it defines a child within the context of Act 560. It's 18, so whether 12, 15 or 16, and if we are invoking Section 14, why are we discussing even 12, 15 or 16? But of course, as part of the prosecutorial processes on evidence, it is important to determine the age only for purpose of ensuring that the child is 18 or not. But 12, 15 or 16, I'm afraid still doesn't cut it.
It's immaterial.
It's immaterial, yes.
And please give the education back to our audience in a summary. The age is immaterial now for as long as she's not 18 because what? Because
Section 1 and 14 of Act 560, first of all, Section 1 defines a child to be someone who is 18 and above. Who is below 18.
Right.
If you go again to the Section 14, and so I've heard also the arguments that when people look at Section 14 to and say that the age of marriage is 18 and say, well, betrothal is not 18. I said, look, you forget, the opening sentence is that no one shall force a child. And that determinative interpretation is in Section 1. Again, the purpose of Section 2 is only to emphasize the marriage, but it still does not take away. If you are telling me then betrothal is not 18, then what is the age for betrothal? It's not stated, and it's covered under Section 1.
So the emphasis is that you concur with Mercy Labi that below 18, there cannot be betrothal or marriage.
Absolutely
just as
right.
Angela has also emphasized.
Absolutely right.
It cannot happen at all.
It is immaterial. Look at Section 14 carefully. And I always like to say you have to give a purposive interpretation to Act 560. It starts off with Section 1 on who a child is. And the purpose of the Act, if you read the long head, is to protect children, in summary. And so if you are looking at a particular provision that emphasizes that marriage ought to be 18, to say that, well, then betrothal need not be 18, I'm afraid I do not agree with you. Because Section 1 and 14, you have to look at it purposively.
I don't know if I'll put you in an invidious position if I ask you this question, but I must still ask it. In that circumstance, a crime has still occurred.
If proven. if the facts are proven, and it's critical to prove this fact. The age is key. But I've indicated that the age is key not because people are peddling around that she's 12, 15, or 16. The age is key being 18.
The Gadangbe statements, the Mankralo's confirmations, the press conference they all hold, confirm she's not 18. They confirm that she's been betrothed to, some say to the priest, some say to the spirit that the priest serves. So, offense has occasioned, correct?
You know, by my profession, I tend to be slow in stating definitely because the police are still conducting their investigation. Even though we may have read on the news outlets, I believe that we must hasten slowly by allowing the police to go through and give us the docket with all the evidences. And on the issue of marriage to spirit or deity, something, you know, Ghana has a very broad human rights framework. And I like to tell people that even if you look at clause 5 of our Article 33, it is so it's so encompassing. It says that the rights, declarations, and duties that have been mentioned in Chapter 5 does not exclude those that have not been specified.
They are inexhaustive.
Exactly, they are inexhaustive. And if you look at the true intendment of Act 560, there is that understanding. So even if you talk about spiritual marriage, the issue is the welfare principle. Whatever has happened, can we rightfully, reasonably say that it augurs well for the welfare or the best interest of the children?
The very reason I qualified my question to her, are you ready to state that from the facts you know so far, from the confirmation from the Gadangbe group and also the council, and from they themselves in their press conference and all, she is not 18. She has been betrothed. A crime has occasioned.
All three of us are lawyers, and we know what the rule is.
She will be prosecuting as Attorney General. So we can excuse her. You will not be prosecuting.
Oh, that's fine, but we still want to go by the rule that it has to be proven. At least you have to take a case to the courts. But for me, you know, it gets even more interesting. If she's 18, assuming without admitting, as Kweku Baku used to say, if she's 18,
he's watching.
You know that there's compulsion of marriage. Can we say that this child has agreed to be married to a 63-year-old man or a deity? That would also come into question, assuming she was 18. Because there's a crime of compulsion of marriage. You can't force anybody to be married against their will. And then we would have to check that. Secondly, the deity issue becomes more interesting for me because we also do have Section 314A of our Criminal Offences Act that talks about customary servitude that was actually promulgated to take the issue of ritual and customary servitude into consideration. And we know where that came from. Trokosi, the bride of the gods. Now, in that particular custom, a child, almost always a girl, goes in to serve for something she has not committed. She is married to the gods, not the human being. But it's the human being who puts her under labor, who has sex with her, who has children with her, who is able to say, go here, and she goes, come here, and she comes. So I think even pushing that issue of marriage to a deity complicates the matter. I mean, we can do the analysis ad nauseum, okay? Now, even though this may not be a trokosi issue per se, there are similarities if you are pushing the argument of deity. So we need to tread very, very cautiously. Besides, the law doesn't deal with spiritual matters.
Correct.
Okay? We are sitting here, we know, I'm a theologian, I know I am spirit, soul, and body. But it's my body you're seeing and interacting with. And so the law deals with certainties. And so the law won't deal with
the metaphysical.
Because
Because the judges who are supposed to deal with this, they are not spirits.
They're not spirits.
They don't have
you
divination
may call them
powers.
Lord temporal for all you can. They still do not have those divination powers. And
so they look for the hard facts.
Exactly. So we are dealing with a human being. That child is not spirit. And we have in this country customs, in certain parts of the country where, a child may be born with a certain defective deformity, and they actually call them spirit children, and they can go and leave them in forest, so they die. Now, if you do that, and we get you, we have to prosecute you. Because you may think all you want that that's a spirit child, but we will not allow you to destroy that physical being.
I asked
that's
about
the
first threshold of what may be a fact that a crime has been committed in terms of a breach of the Children's Act,
right,
which is also punishable according to the law, as the Attorney General issued a statement and told us about. You could go to jail for a year. Or pay a fine of, is it
or both?
A fine of a total of, is it 3,000 or so?
Yes.
Now,
you have to look at
the chieftaincy minister, when he was saying that the priority of the state was to secure the child so that her interests, welfare will be protected, continue to emphasize that they wanted to be sure that she doesn't get violated sexually, which would mean another crime.
Yes.
That's correct.
Correct? Yes, defilement.
Correct. Defilement.
Yes, 7 to 25 years.
Good. So if it is established that there has been sexual encounters.
Oh my goodness. Well, then that gets worse and worse, and I'm hoping it's not that. You know why I'm saying that? I'm really hoping it's not that. I mean, I was in the prosecutions department of the Ministry of Justice for almost 10 years, and I always had a thing about prosecution. I'm not a hard lawyer, So even when I'm prosecuting somebody, I'm thinking the way the defense should be thinking, because sometimes you can see, oh, what did we do? And probably that's why I'm doing
ignorance of the law is no excuse.
It's no excuse, yes, but you can see that human side come out. So I have always believed in the carrot and stick approach, especially when we are dealing with these issues around culture, customary rights, and all of those things, because there's still a lot of education and sensitization. And believe you me, some of the frustration we've had in this work is the fact that it has always appeared as though NGOs primarily do this work. We fold up and sleep when there's no money. As for the states, it is only when this happens that it starts running all over. And that's why I was interested in the interministerial committee that was set up. I said, if we suddenly discover another one here, another one there, are we going to set up interministerial committees for all these things if they come up? We should do what we need to do professionally.
Use one case as an example. That's what they are doing.
Yes, but
they're setting up a high-powered ministerial committee.
What I'm saying about the carrot and stick approach, okay? You would realize that, for example, the DOFSU unit was set up in such a way that it will respond to some issues that are sensitive and yet also criminal. And so it not only looks at the law, it also looks at victim support. It looks at families. It does many things. So if you are not a well-trained DOFSU police officer, for example, you can mess up a little. But if you're well-trained, and that's why I'm thinking about a similar thing that occurred and has occurred a few times. Like this case, I'm not saying religiously, it's the same group, or no. But in professional policing, by that specialized unit, the head withdrew the child. When she withdrew the child to a place of safety, then she went after the one she was also 12. I'm saying this because I was involved. And then she went after the one who wanted to marry her and the whole group of family from the both sides who were arranging this thing. It was her little brother who went and told the police that they're going to marry off my little sister. I don't want it to happen. He ran from school to the police and reported. Immediately, the child was taken away, withdrawn, put into a shelter. She went after the people, and it's interesting how it happened. She began to educate them on the law. Now you can imagine, a whole community also followed. And she said, if you're going to cause any ruckus, I'm going to have you all arrested and prosecuted. And then she explained the law to such an extent to the people. The mother said, I was married off at 12. I mean, look at me now. Nothing has happened to me and so on. It's our practice. And she said, you can believe all you want, practice all you want. It's against the law. By the time she had thoroughly educated them, the people realized if we don't stop this, we are all going to jail. She also realized that she needed to keep the child away for a while to ensure that the danger is completely past and the family is ready to take her back. That's exactly what happened. Years later, I meet this little girl and she tells me, Auntie, I'm in second year medical school. And I say, this is professional policing from the idea in which DOFSU was set up. So it's not always about like a
rush to prosecute.
Yes, rush to prosecute. It's important because the law is the law, and we must bring in this aspect that applies the carrot and the stick.
Right. Let me bring in Mercy Labi from the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and then I return to you for your final comments on, what you think should be happening in earnest, particularly regards the welfare of the child and the mother who are now in the state's custody. There are people who are already saying, oh, give it a week or two, we will all forget this, they will all forget this, this child will suffer, and so on and so forth. Ohineire Nana Danswa, Gifty Auntie, also has been telling us a story of one such girl that she rescued. I know. And now this girl has graduated from university. Yes. Things that would have been lost, a beautiful life.
Yes, and we didn't have to set up an interministerial committee.
I'll tell you, I'll comment on that one. If you give me
okay, so thank you very much, Mercy Labi, for your time. We understand that you also have a very urgent meeting to attend to, but you needed to commit to this for as briefly as we can so you can go. Shraj has shared some statistics with us about complaints that have come, and children's rights complaints dominate. 10,525 of the is the total complaints, and children's rights complaints, we are looking at 3,509. That's 33.3% of the complaints. Help us understand these statistics and what Shraj, by your mandate to educate the people, what you want the people to know, particularly the people in Nungwa, the people in my village, where some of these things continue to happen.
Thank you, Samson. My regards to Honorable Diana and Auntie Jamina, and then Auntie Sheila, who joined. In fact, the statistics
we decided that to have this discussion this morning, we're going to have the very best. And we are thankful that you all agreed to be on the show. Yes.
Thank you. But
yes, and adjust your device. We want to see your beautiful face. Thank you. Now we can see you. Right.
Thank you very much. Yes, as I said, the statistics that we've given is right. When you look at the commission, we have 3 mandates: the human rights, admin justice, and then anti-corruption mandates. All the 3 mandates, it's where we have received the 10,000 cases. But when you come down to human rights alone, 10,156 complaints. But that's for 2023. And out of that 10,153, 3,509 are children's rights complaints. And looking at the subjects that we are discussing now, we received 25 complaints about child marriage, 2023. When you look at the previous statistics, you will see that every year we receive over 20 complaints concerning child marriage. So the menace is still there. I wasn't surprised when I heard it actually, but I was surprised about the reasons they were given. the reasons they were giving, I was surprised. But I wasn't surprised of the action because we've been receiving a lot of complaints about that. And as Madam Jamina said, Shraj, our modus operandi is the best interest of the child. So when normally most of the complaints that we receive, it's the initial complaints. So like when they have planned everything to perform the marriage ceremony, somebody will run and come and lodge a complaint with Shraj, and we have to go in to stop the marriage and also protect the child. That has had a lot of interventions that Shraj has been doing. I remember one, as they were giving examples, one in the Greater Accra here, we have to even try to change the school because of the stigma. We have to facilitate for another school to take the child. So that's what we've been doing. It is going on. And now what we realize is that because people have known that when they perform the marriage rites, it will come out, people will see, and they will come and report. Now they will not perform the marriage rites. They will ask the child to go and live with the person. So you see the child living with the person, and then when the child is 18, they will do whatever they are supposed to do. But from 12 years, you see that the child is living with the person. And in law, we call it cohabitation. And the person will be cohabiting with the man for all this while because they know that when they perform the marriage ceremony openly, people will hear and they will report to Shraj or they will report to the police. And I think that is another area that we have to look at. We've not received a complaint yet on this, and therefore we cannot talk about ever it's going on. But what we know, as I stated last week, is that any form of betrothal, it's a crime. That is what the Children's Act has stated. So whether it's to a deity or to a human being or whatever, it's a crime. Therefore, what we have to do is that the education must go on. We've been doing education. When I give you statistics of education that we've done, but we still think that we have to do more. Other institutions also have to help to do more of the education to nip down these minutes. A lot of, when you take our statistics, you will see that most of them happens in particular regions. Most of our statistics, you see that it happens in particular regions. And we have to intensify our education in these regions where a lot of these child marriages happen.
Which are these regions that dominate in that, in this case?
The northern part.
The northern is a broad place.
25 complaints that we received. Out of the 25, 12 is from northeast. 12 is from northeast. So you could see when you take 5-year statistics, I can give you 5-year statistics. That is 2018, we received 32 complaints of child marriage. 2019, 44 complaints. 2020, 25. 2021, 21. And then that's 2023. I don't have the 2022 immediately with me. But 2023, that's 25. So you could see that it's still happening.
Yeah, so which regions again?
Yes, I'll give you the statistics in a minute on.
Right, and I was going to ask you this question, which I will turn to my guest in the studio also, so that we begin to wrap up. But I was asking myself whether this question has not already been answered by the law. The Ghana Psychology Association, in their statement, they said that we call on traditional and religious leaders to speak out against child marriage and other harmful practices that destroy children, and to promote the safety, rights, and well-being of children in their communities. The law is already there. So what can the religious and traditional leaders be doing in addition to the law? Now, first, what do you say are the regions that dominate?
Okay, so when we take our statistics, we will see that I'll be with you.
Yeah, so the regions in the north, number one, and we want to learn about others as well. Yes. Now, before I get back to Mercy, and perhaps I just get to her, and then she will be the person who speaks to bring the curtains down on this discussion. Now, tying it in with the safety of the child and people not being particularly sure about how we do things typically in this country, that now there is attention to it, and then it will just fizzle out, and this child may not even get the proper care going forward. What do you think religious leaders, traditional leaders can do? First, yes, Dinah.
Right, thank you. But something, let me just take a minute to react to one thing about the Inter-Ministerial Committee, which I believe Dr. Dramina Boaje has expressed her views on. And I would say that Inter-Ministerial Committee is important for a number of considerations, not to in any way treat this case different, but as she rightly indicated, no two cases are the same. And then she also mentioned that the responsibility of the upbringing of the child, it includes the government and it includes the traditional authorities. And thirdly, we look at the glaring way in which this ceremony, whatever it is called, was carried out. And so for us as government, it was a bit shocking because the question is, in all the discussion to protect children, to eradicate child marriages, traditional authorities have not been excluded. And also we cannot, in all respect, I put on record, the office of the Olomo cannot be underestimated. And so for us, the worry has been that within this discussion of including even traditional authorities, and then we have such a respectable traditional authority being at the forefront of this openly, that is a cause for concern. And of course, that's what the Interministerial Committee is about. So
people are also concerned that the Constitution requires that the law should be respecter of no one. Exactly. And that we are all equal before the law. It doesn't matter whether you are president or you are not.
Absolutely.
So if it was that carpenter in that corner who was caught in this, he would have been arrested, thrown into police custody, by now may have appeared before a court, would have been remanded in jail. Why is it that there is a difference in treatment?
There's no difference in treatment. And I beg to differ that it is not the case that automatically a person gets remanded for offenses. The police are on top of their job. They have taken statements, they've arrested, taking statements. The investigations are ongoing. It is not the case that once this there's an allegation of this offense, the person will be remanded. Let's not forget the issues of bail, etc. But what I'm saying is that for us, the concern is that we thought we had made some strides, particularly including traditional authorities. And something, it will be remiss on our part not to appreciate the peculiarity of this particular case for the office of the Wolomo. It cannot be denigrated with all respect, and we need to give that due deference without prejudice to the non-discrimination in the application of the law. I have indicated, other than that, the Office of the Attorney General would not have issued that letter, and it would have been in the public that proceed with investigation. I believe that what has happened, there are a number of things we need to consider. Yes, prosecution, but as I've indicated, personally and professionally, primarily the interests of the children.
That's right.
And for me, a third angle, which is an education and resensitization, it means that something has gone amiss, particularly when we've included even our traditional authorities, our queen mothers, our chiefs, etc. And in 2024, we are having these reports. And so that is why for us as a government, we need to come back and take stock. So I believe that all these considerations must be looked at.
What's the guarantee, what's the assurance that this child and her mother will not be left in the next few weeks, and then they get into the community, they may be subject of ridicule and attack and so on?
That's the assurance, is to give you the assurance. But thankfully, social media and people like you, I believe Doc just hinted to me that she will be on top of this case. The Office of the Attorney General is also on top of this matter. We intend to do, as I say, a taking of a restocking of our understanding the sensitization that has taken place and what needs to be done. I believe this case has received so much public scrutiny that it will be risky even for anybody, and we don't intend to.
Are you giving the police any timelines to complete their investigations?
We have, we ask the lawyers to say as soon as possible, but we're looking at in the next week, I believe that there will be significant progress that will further be made, and then the public will be made aware of that.
Thank you so very much, Diana. And yes, Angela, you deal with people who find themselves in this place, and you give them a home, you give them a place to lay their heads. And I think it will not be wrong that when we are done with this show, we're done with you. You may have to announce ACT Foundation, the project you are on now, the monthly small contributions that people can do to help in that regard.
Yeah, in the spirit.
What do you think? Yes, what do you think the state's steps should look like to give confidence that they are actually serious about this, and particularly for the child and the mother? And then you are also in the clergy. So religious and traditional leaders, what role should they be playing?
Okay, so very quickly, for the child, the practical things is what the government is doing now, keeping them in a safe place, providing social, psychosocial care and all of that, even medical doctor and all of that.
How long should that be?
It should be for as long as she's still a child, because of the stigma, because of the psychological impacts on her, because of what might even happen to her parents, the threats and all of that. So the state must still stay on course. The state must also ensure that the social welfare plan for care is in place. Because sometimes there are gaps. I mean, we live in this system. We know that sometimes our social welfare lacks the resources and all of that. So they should make sure social welfare has the resources and also has a plan that will stay on course until the girl is over 18 years old and can live in a community, with her parents, with freedom, okay? Now, when it comes to the government, I think I go with what Deputy Attorney General is saying in terms of resensitization. But you can't do it outside of your own frameworks. We have forgotten that we have set in place several frameworks. Sometimes the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and we simply forget about it. If we go back to those frameworks and look at how we are supposed to set in place community systems of protection, they are not difficult. Sometimes it just needs somebody doing their work, putting their eyes on the ball, and ensuring that these things are happening. Sometimes they'll tell you it's the money. Sometimes it's not the money at all. It's somebody just making sure that they are doing what they said they would do. The district assemblies are the ones supposed to protect children within their jurisdictions. How much does the district assembly, the MCs, know about the protective frameworks that we have? We have to check all of those things so we can catch the issues right at the community level and take them through the systems that we have. It is just the same people around the children who will help us to protect the children, and we need to put them in the frameworks that we already have. That's also part of our frustration, and so I am appealing to my sister that we should go back to the frameworks. We have one in the domestic violence implementation policy. We have one in the child law and family welfare policy. Let's look at the frameworks and begin to work on those frameworks for protection. Traditional authorities and religiously, please, leadership. That's all I can say. We won't expect our leaders to do the things that they don't expect their followers not to do. Whether you're a traditional leader, a religious leader, whatever political leader, we're expecting you not to perpetrate these acts against the most vulnerable of our society. So please, if it's about education, get educated. If it is about whatever it is, but don't be caught on the wrong side of the law. You won't be a model.
Thank you very much. Tell us about the Shelter Treasury Fund that the ACT Foundation has been up to. Tell us just briefly about it. And I'm projecting this. Look at the contact numbers there. And please grab your phone and donate. They are doing a beautiful job for vulnerable mothers, women, and children who need a home so they can gain their sanity and be useful to our society. So that's the ACT Foundation, the Shelter Treasury Fund. The bank accounts are there. You can contribute to that. And also there's the MTN number. That one I invite you right now. Pick your phone, and send them something so they can take care of our sisters who are there. It's 024 3777 773 0243 777 777 Yes.
Samson, you said it all. We've been at this for 25 years. I can't describe to you the number of cases we've seen or the kinds of cases we've had to handle in this country. And that is even just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Because how many can we do at a time and all of that? And so this is like a legacy project. We want it to continue running. We need the support of government, of civil society personalities, of people like, I think I'm coming after you. A bit of your salary. You know, we need to keep this running. For a fact, all the state institutions use our services to protect children, to protect women. But we don't receive any funding from any of those spaces. So thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
I mean, we're asking people to help.
Let me now go to Mercy. And Mercy, thanks once again for your patience and time. So you close this chapter of the show with us. Once again, we just want to have an idea of the regions or the areas where child marriages are predominant, so that we can all keep an eye in helping Shraj in the education that you have been mounting to reduce the occurrences in these places.
Thank you, Stephen.
Samson. That's all right.
Yeah, the 25 complaints that we received, you could see that the 12 is from Northern Region, 2 is from Northeast, 4 is from Blue East, 2 from Upper West, then 1 Upper East, 1 Western North, and 3 OT. So you will see that it cuts across.
Do you have an expectation that once you are of the firm view, which all your sisters here confirm, that there cannot be betrothal at this age, there cannot be marriage either, and so first is established, a crime has been committed in terms of the Children's Act, then there is also the investigation that must go on about whether or not there has been some sexual encounter where potentially there may be a question of defilement. You have expectations that there will be prosecution?
Something is yes. We believe in our prosecution, the police, and then my sister, Honorable Attorney General there. I know what she can do when it comes to human rights, because she is a human rights activist. As I said, we have not received a complaint yet, and we don't prosecute. When we receive the complaint, we look at the best interest of the child, and we are happy that the Ministry of Gender has taken the child, and the child is being guided or protected. And one thing I want to add is that this child has been indoctrinated in the belief of what the custom is. So when they are taking the child through the necessary protocols, I would suggest that they should also look at that one, because even if you don't take the indoctrination out of this girl, you will still believe that there is something that is going to happen to him if he doesn't marry or take the process that they have done. So I think the protocol should take into consideration all these things. What Shraj started some time ago, we were talking about the religious leaders or faith-based organizations. Some time ago, yes, our project, that was 2019, we started a project like that, and we were going or meeting the leaders of faith-based organizations and then educating them on all these issues, because we know that some of them champion some of these things, and the reasons they give for giving their child out of marriage, normally I would say they have to, they use it as a belief in their religion. For example, they said that poverty is one. Two, we don't want the child to be be fornicating and other things. So let us give him a man to marry. So some of these reasons they give, I think, is actually not in line with the law. So when we meet the faith-based organization, the leaders, we educate them on the law, the children's rights, and all that the international instruments talks about. You know, aside our constitution, we have a lot of international instruments. We have the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. We have the ICCPR and other things. All these things talk against child marriage. So it's not our law alone. When you go to international front, all these things, all these laws that Ghana has ratified. So that comes to where Honorable Diana was talking about, Article 33(5). We have ratified all these laws. So we should take steps to abolish child marriage. And as we've been doing, we will continue to do. But we need more support and resources to be able to go around all the country.
If it is an offense, what is there to abolish?
Yes, it's an offense, but we know the international instruments state that states should take steps to abolish it. Okay. And that's what the state has done.
Okay.
To make it an offense.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mercy Labi is Deputy Commissioner at the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Earlier, you heard us speak to Sheila Minka Premo, lawyer and senior legal practitioner and development consultant. When I say lawyer and senior legal practitioner, what am I saying? I'm saying the same thing. Sometimes my production, the things you get me to say. Dr. Angela Dramina Boaje is Executive Director, the ARC Foundation. And Diana Asunabadapa is Deputy Attorney General and Deputy Minister for Justice. We can't thank you enough. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having
us. Right. So